Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 3 of Elton's 15. I'm Elton. A couple things in recent news. Jakey Lee, the once guitar player for Ozzy Osbourne's band, he's the guy that replaced Randy Rhoads, the original guitar player in what was Ozzy's first solo band. At least the first replacement in terms of studio work, because there was a couple of guitar players that finished off the rest of that tour. Brad Gillis, and I believe there may have been one or two more that kind of snuck in for a show or two, or a few more than that. Jakey Lee, sort of legendary. Bark at the Moon, released in 1983. He was the mastermind there, guitar player. Phenomenal player. I mean, undeniable skill and a heck of a showman also. And then 1986, The Ultimate Sin. It was those two albums that kind of launched him into the stratosphere as far as recognition in guitar playing lore. To get the coveted spot of being in Ozzy Osbourne's band after Randy was kind of like many guitar players, like that was like a wanted position. You can go back to before Jake. You hear stories about the Docking guitar player George Lynch actually essentially getting the gig, performing at sound checks, but never making it onto the stage. And I don't know what the exact details are of that, but he didn't get the gig. Jakey Lee ended up getting the gig, and I think there's a little friendly tension even to this day between Jakey Lee and George Lynch regarding the landing of that gig over him. Jakey Lee getting it over George Lynch. But Jakey Lee is in the news now. He had disappeared for quite a while. I mean, after the Ozzy Osbourne he went on to form Badlands and released, I believe, a couple albums there. And that band was doing pretty well. I remember seeing them on MTV for a bit there in the late 80s. And then it just kind of went away. I mean, I think there was some controversy with the lead singer getting sick. I think at the time, the AIDS epidemic was just sort of rearing itself, and I believe the singer had AIDS at one point, and it was very taboo to talk about. And there's a whole thing surrounding that I know not very little details about, but that was the last time Jakey Lee was really out in public in terms of releasing music and being in a band, of having some sort of notoriety post Ozzy Osbourne. And then he kind of sort of disappeared from the limelight of sorts. The grunge movement, of course, moved in and kind of displaced anything based in rock and roll from the 80s, just kind of swept it off to the side. So all those big acts that were doing the big business there in the late 80s got an unceremonious kick out the door, so to speak. And then, Jakey Lee, I remember thinking quite a bit in the 90s, where'd that guy go? It was sort of, he disappeared. And then he kind of came back a bit. Several years ago, he released what was Red Dragon Cartel. And a couple albums, 2 albums so far. I hope he's working on a third one. Really great music. If you're into that style of rock, he's a heck of a player still, which is great. But that's not why he's in the news. He's in the news because he was doing something that many of us do, pet owners, right? We have the cats, we get the dogs, and anything in between. He was taking his dog out for a walk. Now, Jake lives just outside of the Strip there in Las Vegas. I believe the story was 10 miles from there. And he brought his dog for a walk just after 2 a.m., which is pretty late to bring your dog for a walk, at least for me. But he's a rock star, so that seems like rock star hours. His dog named Coco, who plays a part in the story here because Coco is uninjured, but Jake was shot taking his dog for a walk. Yikes. Scary as heck. He sustained 3 gunshot wounds, one in the foot, one in the forearm, and he got one in the back that clipped a lung, and that's the more significant of the 3. And the dog, Coco, completely unharmed. Jake was conscious through it all, and is going to make a full recovery as the story reports. And Jake even took to trying to reach out to a few sources, including, I think it was his Instagram or somewhat of a social. He said he hadn't been on there in quite a while. He was doing like a testing, this thing still work kind of a thing. But he let everybody know that he's doing well, thankfully, and that the dog was unharmed, and that they're taking care of the lung. That's the high priority, and then other things will be sort of considered thereafter. The lung is the first one there to get all the attention, and rightfully so. But anyways, glad to hear he's okay. But the news report story on this is that it was the police report that 15 shots in total were fired in. They found 15 shells on the ground. Whoa. And 3 landed. And Jake considers himself super lucky, and I completely understand that. Wow, to be able to survive something like that. Thank goodness he's okay. I mean, he's amongst the elite players from back when I was, in elementary to middle school, who were the top guys that you just starting to learn how to play guitar and stuff. He was one of the guys for sure I paid attention to, and they're slowly departing our existence here. I mean, they're passing on. It's very. I mean, it's scary. You think everybody lives forever, but not at all. I think Jake's 67. And what's the funny thing is, not even funny. None of it's funny. But I just finished listening to him on a podcast called Tone Talk, where he was as a guest and talking about some new technologies that has his name attached to it. And I listened to it all the way through. I mean, I've heard Jake on there once before, and it was great. The guy's super candid, very truthful, very forthcoming in what he talks about behind the scenes stuff with Ozzy and all the rest. And hadn't just finished that, and then a few days later he's back in the news. When I saw Jakey Lee headline stuff, I thought, oh wow, I guess it's the release of these technologies called IRs. They're impulse responses stuff, things for guitar players and guitar sounds and stuff. And I thought it was that, but it was, I mean, total 180. Yikes, life-threatening stuff almost. But thankfully he's on the mend. So Jake, I wish you all the best in a speedy recovery, and thank goodness you're still here with us. Yeah. And another quick story here, a completely different story. Alice in Chains, yeah, a band from that grunge movement. Although I was viewed that band, that band a bit differently from the others. I remember hearing them on the radio before any of the other groups were kind of making airplay where I live. The local radio station where I live is out of Providence. And I remember hearing a song called Sea of Sorrow, and I'm thinking, wow, it's pretty cool. And then, of course, Man in the Box came out, and wow, these guys are different. This is pretty cool. Anyways, they're in the news right now. There was an article out of Forbes magazine. I got to give credit to my son, Indiana, who had sent this to me earlier today. And pretty cool. A very cool story. Within the last couple of years, I started getting into vinyl. Vinyl was something that I had when I was a kid, a Fisher-Price units. And I would get 45s. And I remember my parents having a larger form record collection with the full LPs. But I remember having lots of 45s. And then, of course, that got replaced as I got older with tapes and then CDs. And now I've kind of come back to the album, not the 45s, but the album. But they had a limited edition release of their 2009 album called Black Gives Way to Blue. and it was a limited release, and they sold 2,600 copies of it, and everyone went and grabbed it up, which I think is phenomenal, and it put them back on the album Billboard charts. The vinyl charts, they almost made the top 10. They were at 11, but still impressive. I mean, their album sales went up 500% based on this, which I just get a kick out of. I can't believe that we're living at a time where we have this cutting edge technology with a whole multitude of things, but yet vinyl is sort of the antithesis of it and has a sustainability here in 2024. And I myself love it. We have a local record shop called Purchase Street Records, kind of near where I live. They're based out of a place called Fairhaven, Massachusetts, once in a place called New Bedford, Massachusetts. New Bedford, Massachusetts has a bit of a history to it. It was once the whaling capital of everywhere at some point, and that's sort of their claim to fame, a deep history of boating and whaling. But Purchase Street Records was originally on Purchase Streets in New Bedford. They moved locations to the nearby town called Fairhaven. They kept the name, so I mean it's pretty funny. But I go there, and that's usually where I source my vinyl. Great establishment, great owner. Roger's awesome. Hi, Roger. But it's pretty cool to note that that's something that's just happened, and to a great band. Of course, they lost their original singer, Lane Staley. Drugs, and it just seems to be the cliche there that musicians that still should be making music right now in their late 50s and kind of carrying that torch of the music that was in the 90s, too many of them have passed on, and it's because of addiction. That's such a sad story to it. But Alice in Chains decided to kind of pull it together. They got William Duvall to replace Lane, and I say replace, I mean he's filling in the spot. There's no replacing anyone when they pass on, but allowing the band to continue on. And it's awesome that they revisited the 2009 release of that album, and 15-year anniversary, I guess, is what they were going after with it. And it put them back on the charts. That's pretty cool. And well, thanks for tuning in here. I do play a little bit during my videos here. This guitar there's an interesting story about this guitar, and tomorrow I'll talk about the interesting story behind it. I never thought I was gonna own a sparkled gold Fender Stratocaster, but it plays great, and this is a funny story behind it. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Elton. This is Elton's 15. Catch you later. Thanks again. Bye.